And economists, they've described the path of South Africa's economy as a disaster due to the effects of load shedding. Now, the rolling blackouts have had a negative impact on all sectors of the economy, including investment and businesses. Well, to speak more on how communities are also affected and, importantly, the increase in the cost of living, we're joined now by Mr. Richard Mdakane, President of SANCO. Mr. Mdakane, thank you very much for your time. There may be some people who are uncomfortable with you here saying that you represent SANCO. We're going to talk about those politics a little later. But let's start with the organization that you lead, whose primary aim, I would think, is for communities to live a slightly better life than what South Africans are experiencing right now. So let me go straight to my question. There's an ongoing lekgotla, cabinet lekgotla. It was preceded by the ANC lekgotla. What kind of decisions ought to come out of these engagements that will benefit the poorest of the poor?
Well, good morning, Tony. Our view as SANCO, we're just happy that the ANC had a lekgotla, and now it's a cabinet lekgotla. Our understanding is that what the ANC has decided as policy principles and a program will be implemented by the executive. And we think that the whole issue of load shedding is the biggest problem for us. It's not just affecting the economy in the broader sense. If individuals who are trying their spaza shop, many of them are about to close their spaza shop because of the problem of the unsustainable energy supply system.
Yeah.
Our view is that we agree that the proposed state of disaster should be supported, because that will assist the executive to implement the decision taken by the cabinet now as they are meeting. Because without doing that, it will be taking longer to solve the bigger problem that is facing us.
Yeah.
That is affecting all of us, irregardless which political party you belong to, irregardless whether you are a big business person or a small business person. But the smaller business persons that are better affected by this load shedding.
Yeah.
We are really urging the president and the executive to ensure that they address this matter without delays, because the economy is facing a real challenge on this matter.
You mentioned the possible declaration of a national state of disaster on the energy situation in the country. People listening to you will say, well, indeed, as a person who leads an organization such as the one that you lead, a civics organization, you are correct in advocating for a speedy resolution to this. But what they may not be aware of is that SANCO is part of what is called the ANC-led alliance. And that means that you get invited into these meetings. For example, the ANC lekgotla, it invites a broad range of stakeholders. Were you part of that meeting, and what kinds of outcomes should we anticipate, or what kinds of discussions were had about this electricity situation?
This time, for the first time, we were not invited.
As SANCO?
As SANCO, precisely because of our internal problems. The Alliance took a decision 2 years ago that SANCO should sit down and have a discussion and solve its own internal squabblings. As a result of that, we are not then invited. We are no longer part of the Alliance in the narrow sense of being Alliance, but we are part of the Alliance in terms of our branches, the regions and provinces that are still working with Alliance structures. But at the national, because of our foolishness, really, we can't blame the ANC for that. They've got nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
It's something that caused by us, and we are busy now trying to resolve it. Hopefully, we are going to resolve our problem as soon as possible.
But isn't that then exactly what is going wrong with our country? For an organization with its history, as SANCO. You've just said you were not invited at a very important meeting that takes decisions on behalf of the entire country, and you were not there because of your own internal squabbles as SANCO. That's a blight on this organization, Mr. Mdakane. What is going wrong within SANCO?
Well, there are bigger questions that we are facing as an organization. The problem of SANCO are not personal problems. And the big problem that we are facing as a civic movement is the question of comrades who are raising, genuinely so, that SANCO should stand for elections. And then other comrades who are taking a view that the civic movement is a community-based organization, should not stand for election. In fact, the difficulties that we are facing is about this question. And then because this question also sometimes they are clouded by some personalities, but generally this is a question that we are facing. There's a bigger move for that, and then hence you know that SANCO, Dr. Liang and SANCO, they ended up standing for local government election.
Yeah.
And then there are a lot of comrades who are arguing strongly that SANCO should be a political party and stand for election in 2024. There are also comrades who are taking a view that I belong to anyway, that the civic movement must never become a political party.
Yeah.
If we become a political party by default, we are going to stop to exist as a civic movement. And then our view is that the civic movement is a product of community struggles. It must remain a community-based organization, should not be a political party. But our view is say that no, it is time for SANCO to become a political party, given the experiences of this collapsing coalition government at the local level. There's a stronger push for that. And then we have taken a view that the comrades who are arguing for this point, they must prepare a thorough discussion paper and be presented in the National Executive Committee. We call it interim at the moment. And then for us to discuss it, because we can't run away from it, because it's having a lot of harm for the organization. But at the same time, you can't also hijack the organization and turn into a political party without following all the processes and procedure that are constitutionally designed by SANCO as an organization.
It's interesting that you've taken us through this background, because as we continue the conversations, there are those who are watching and are saying, particularly within this leadership, that you're not part of it. There was a purported disciplinary hearing against you. The understanding is that you never attended that, and the outcome, therefore, was that you ought to be suspended, and I think that even went further to a point of expulsion. So are you even sitting here legitimately as president of SANCO?
There's no other president of SANCO that was democratically elected by a conference of SANCO. Not a single one, included. And then, of course, there are two SPASA conferences that were organized. One SPASA conference was organized. I was the lead of that SPASA conference in Alexandra. It was a SPASA conference, really, in truly speaking. And then when you call it a SPASA conference, people may be confused. Basically, it was an illegitimate conference. It was an illegitimate conference in all intents and purposes. But we were part of it for one reason. Because when the comrade failed to convince the NEC that SANCO should be a political party and stand for election in 2019, they started then behaving in a manner that was unbecoming in an organization. As a result of that, we had a conference in Alexandra. And that conference that was held in Alexandra, notwithstanding that was illegitimate in terms of the outcome of it. And then also the preparation were bad. And when we were in Alexandra, 39 comrades who were part of those who were elected directly, Umtata, didn't attend the conference. They ended up somewhere in Midrand organizing the counter conference. And when there's a conference that is sitting, organized by them, because the conference in Alexandra was organized by them. We even had a meeting of the NEC when delegates already in Alexandra having a discussion on that. Yeah. But they didn't attend. Therefore, the legitimacy then of our conference in Alexandra got affected. Precisely because the Constitution of SANCO says the presentation of credentials is a duty of the Deputy General Secretary and the National Organizer. And two of these comrades were not in Alexandra. They were part of the NEC meeting, but they disappeared when we were about to go to the delegate have a conference there. And then they ended up then with another conference in Durban in March. And then precisely because of these problems, we ended up then with almost 2 organizations. Both of them not legitimate anyway.
So as things stand, to understand you perfectly clearly, there are 2 SANCOs that exist right now, and these are parallel structures that do things separate from each other. Is that what you effectively say?
No, after Alexander conference, there was a conference in Durban, ended up with 2. Yeah. But 2021 September, we call all comrades who were elected directly at Mthatha to come together and resolve their problems. As a result of that, then we come into one structure that we call SANCO now.
Yes.
But it's in the interim, precisely because the term of office of those who were elected in Mthatha ended in 2019.
Okay.
And then, but now there's one. Of course, there will always be individual which is claimed as president, president, but 2 conferences that were held, or both of them were so illegitimate that no one recognized them. That's why we ended up in court.
Okay, let me understand at least at provincial structure level. Yeah. Recently, you would have seen a conference that was held in KwaZulu-Natal, where the understanding is that former President Jacob Zuma was elected chairperson. Was that a legitimate conference?
First, conferences of our provinces are organized by provinces. The national leadership only come to oversee the conference. But we know that in KZN, there was another conference, themselves they call it a bogus conference. And then they organized another conference that now elected the former president of the ANC to be chairperson of the province. And then our approach always is that we must try to unify our organization in all spheres, in all levels. At the moment, of course, the branches anyway are very solid. And then they're semi-independent from the national, because we started with branches before we form a national structure.
Yeah.
As a result of that, they're very semi-independent. Whether we are divided national or not, our branches simply functions the way they should be functioning. As a result of that, we got more advantage as an organization because our branches are intact, our region are intact. So 2 provinces are affected by that, but many provinces also are solid now. They've united themselves.
Including the province of KwaZulu-Natal. That province has a legitimate provincial leadership.
As far as we know, there are some challenges that they would face. But at the political level, we have agreed that we are going to meet with them sooner and have a discussion about the leadership that was elected at the conference. We are busy with that. But just to come to one area that I think sometimes is misunderstood. The former president of the ANC started telling us that one day, when he's no longer a president of the ANC or a president of the country, he will come and work in the civic movement. He said this thing almost 10 years ago. Yeah. When then got elected 2 weeks ago, we are not surprised because they have been informing us that, comrade, I'm prepared to work with a civic structure that is democratic in South Africa because I'm interested as an activist and community. Yeah. And then really we appreciated that. And then, of course, they had a conference. That conference, of course, then took place and was elected. Then we are going to engage with them and have a discussion with them. Right. But we think that it's not an opportunistic view that is simply emerges to be president of or to be a chairperson there. In fact, He told us a long time ago, 15 years ago. And then he had been always telling us, comrade, I will serve in SANCO. I've served the ANC, I served COSATU, SACTU in particular. I served the Communist Party. In the alliance, I've never been an activist of SANCO. I'm going to do that when I retire from the active politics.
All right.
That's why then is there now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to have to end the conversation here, Mr. Mdakane, but
Okay.
I suppose the big takeaway here is that for an organization like yours to be in tatters, as you've just explained, it's a huge concern for a country with communities that are literally falling apart. Every other day, people get killed on the streets of South Africa, and I'm not exaggerating. KwaMashu, Gqeberha, Mthatha. For your organization to be in this state, it's not helping those communities. Unfortunately, I'm out of time. We have to wrap.
We are uniting it.
Okay.
And
all
then
right.
we are almost there.
Okay. Richard Mdakane, thank you very much for your time, President of SANCO.